Hello and welcome to Inside Music Curation. We're the team at Feed Media Group and we hang out here the first Wednesday of the month to talk all things music curation. And today, ahead of the Grammy Awards show happening in a few days, we thought we'd talk a little bit about Grammys in this post-genre culture that we're in. Now more than ever, we're seeing blurred lines between genres, artists experimenting, genres informing others. And what does this mean for award shows like the Grammys, where you have categories like rock and what does rock embody these days? A wide array of artists is what we're finding out. So we want to dig in a little bit, find out how it's going to affect the award show this year and the future, and just talk about the changes in genres that are happening in general. So with me, I've got our esteemed music curation team from Feed Media Group, Mike Savage, Juan Hernandez Cruz, Claire McConnell. Thank you guys for joining me.
Thank you.
Where should we start? I mean, I think there's always the big names, folks that have a lot of nominations this year: Beyonce, Adele, Harry Styles, Taylor Swift, Brandi Carlile, Mary J. Blige. Wet Leg is kind of the alternative choice that got quite a few nominations. Are there any overall themes that you guys feel like you've seen within the nominations or general thoughts about this year's nominations?
Fair. I would say that it's you could tell that they're thinking about it, a little bit more closely than they were. So I feel like it's, genres and genders are fairly well represented, across the board.
Yeah. And I know every year they add some new categories. This year, some of the new categories that they added were Songwriter of the Year, non-classical. We've talked on this program about more collaborations, whether it's dance music or pop music. So I think there's some additional credits going out there. Best alternative music performance, best Americana performance. So some of the categories that are already there are getting wider now. Best score soundtrack for video games, spoken word poetry. So lots of new categories. What else do you see is really kind of changing with the Grammys over time? I know, how it's watched has definitely changed.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. It's not sort of the tentpole event maybe any award show used to be at this point in time. I think the nature of streaming changes that a lot in how people are able to consume. There's just sort of less immediacy and needing to watch right away and at that time, and is very easy to watch clips of the portions you would like to see on YouTube or on social media platforms. And so I think the sort of heightened experience around that is like, yeah, it'll still make entertainment headlines, but the needing to see every second has sort of changed. Although I think I don't think they're without purpose. I think, there is sort of like an historic record keeping type thing that I think this serves a little bit more than just like, oh, well, this was definitely the best. I think maybe like the categories and all of the nominations say more than like the winners themselves.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, good points for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, the Grammys needs to expand more. I mean, especially with all of the genre blending that's going on, I'm pretty sure we're probably going to see something like a rap rock category in the future, because it has to expand.
Well, we were talking about the other day, currently there is a rap category, but there's no hip hop category. So, will they be expanding on categories? Will they be adding more? Again, right now they cram a lot of things into categories. Rock is always my favorite one because ultimately rock music does have a lot of different facets. But you've got Bryan Adams, Beck, the Black Keys, Brandi Carlile, Idols, Ozzy Osbourne, Turnstile. I mean, you just have the whole spectrum from, what I would have thought maybe would have been in the metal category to even some of the folkier rock. It's just really casting a wide net.
Part of it, I mean, part of it is it's great that it's like that, because you're always going to get people arguing about it, like why is Brandy Carlisle in rock, and it sparks debate and it gets people talking about it, but and then the other thing too is like if they did separate it into 15 different subgenres, it would be a 15-hour long program, and I don't know if CBS television is going to want to give up that kind of airtime.
Yeah.
Do they even show all the awards?
No, God, no.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to go online and watch I used to manage an artist who got nominated for Best Video one year, and it was like putting on a tux, and it's the Southern California heat is on you, and you're in this this theater like way before the main event's happening, and you're sitting there and you're sweating, and it's not even televised, and you're hoping that people are like watching it on YouTube, maybe.
Well, and it goes beyond watching, right? I mean, while I may not, stream the Grammys, I might not have the network or something. I'm looking at the nominations list, right? Like I'm looking at the playlists online that are featuring these songs. I want to hear what's new. I want to hear what the Academy has nominated. So I feel like it goes farther beyond what happens at the actual award show, as like you said, kind of having this documentation, and going back and listening and kind of seeing if there's something that I missed this year.
Yeah, for better or worse, I think like the number of nominees in each category, especially like I think they usually call them like the top 5. There's not really like a limit on it. And so that's why I think even the artists are starting to view it, more as like it's an honor to be nominated than really like care about winning, because I know Mike has talked about like winning doesn't translate to album sales in that way anymore. It translates to promotion and hopefully selling more tickets on tour and stuff like that. But I think there's sort of less pressure to that aspect of it, because there's so many other ways that an artist can control driving their own business in that way, that like the award show doesn't have to hold all of that power anymore, and it can be just
you're going to parlay that nomination into so many more things, as opposed to thinking about from a label's perspective and from an artist management perspective, how much money do we want to really put into a performance on the Grammys, because they're on the hook for most of those production costs. So it's like, okay, well, do we pay a whole bunch of money to play for 2.5 minutes in front of maybe 8 million arbitrary viewers, or are there other creative ways to again parlay a nomination alone into other areas to create exposure and bring income in?
And that's really interesting. I did not know that artists, and their teams had to front the production costs for performing on the Grammy. I would have never, as a casual viewer, thought that was the case. So that's
a racket. It's all a racket.
It's a really interesting, different look at the Grammys and what they can be to different people and to the general public. Is it finding new artists? To artists, is it promotion and getting out there and getting in front of people? And is the award show the thing that you want to be a part of now? Is there opportunity for the Grammys to expand kind of outside the award show and what they're doing and how they can honor artists throughout the year, right? And help create exposure and opportunities. So I think lots of interesting. I'm really excited to see where the Grammys goes over the next 10 years, and to see what whether it's a category or a genre or just the mode in which it's displayed and shared with the general public. What else? Any other trends that you guys saw or comments? Top albums, top artists of the year. Any surprises in there?
I find when looking at the list of nominations, especially for album of the year, I heard a very long time ago that the Grammy committees typically have a bias for albums that are made by like a smaller group of producers. That's sort of still part of like the integrity of the album and what that means. And I think sort of like an interesting thing we're sort of starting to see change, especially with big tentpole albums like Beyonce and Renaissance, which has a lot of samples. And then therefore, all of those sampled songwriters are attributed for Album of the Year. Same thing, Lizzo's list is pretty long as well. Harry Styles is one of the shorter on that list. So it's sort of interesting if you're, trying to make predictions, that is sort of something to keep an eye on. And, just in the nature of, more even genres using sampling, how that's going to sort of change if that still becomes a factor, especially in the big Album of the Year category.
Definitely. Any other comments, you guys, on on production that's gone into these, or how these albums have been presented this year?
I think
we've
it's
got.
dope.
What was that?
I think it's dope that they have the producers all out in the open, baby.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see. You know what I mean? Let's the Wizard of Oz, what do you call it? Curtain. Let's see that stuff. And what I find very interesting about it is that I started to see more women producers in these bylines, right? These are things that have never been talked about, because when we talk about music and like artists and like singers and whatnot, we are completely missing out on a bigger factor of there's people that are in the trenches making beats, playing the music, writing the songs. And yeah, the artist may or may not have, some direction in that, but it's kind of like a community makes, the thing really bang out. And honestly, one of the reasons why Beyonce's record is so very fine-tuned is that they had an amazing staff of people making sure that every song hit. And it literally does, So yeah, that's what I would say.
And if you're not sure what we're talking about, you can go to the Grammys site and look at the nominations, and you'll see for Album of the Year, there's a list of people involved. And again, like ABBA has a very short list. Adele gets a little longer, Bad Bunny a little longer. Beyonce has probably 50 different producers credited here. So it's really interesting to see how many people are working behind the scenes on these albums.
And imagine how many of those people behind the scenes working on those nominated albums are also Recording Academy voting.
Oh,
the plot thickens.
Just put that out there.
The more people you have on the team, the more people you have on the team.
Yeah, I do think even the new artist category this year especially is interesting, of really representing a lot of different genres and styles that we're just starting to see emerge as trends. And I think, still has that sort of if you're in the know about these things, and there's always a few in the new artist category, especially, I feel, where you're well, they're not really that new. And Anita is a well-established pop star in Brazil. So it's at some point this is catering to oh, you are now welcomed to the US music industry officially. But so yeah, there's always funny things like that to look at, in addition to, certain artists having, quote unquote beef with which genre they've been put into for their album, and sort of what's most beneficial to them at that part in their career, getting a win in their smaller genre, or, going up against the bigger guns in pop.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about different genres, popping up this year. Obviously, Latin music has been huge. Afro beats are coming through, and a lot of that is represented in the new artist. Let's look at pop a minute. We talk a lot about pop music. At Feed FM, we curate music for digital fitness companies. So we use a lot of pop music, right? It's motivating people through their workouts. And some of the folks nominated this year, we've got Adele, Bad Bunny, Doja Cat, Steve Lacy, Lizzo, and Harry Styles for best solo performances. What trends do you see within that's really translating to pop in general? Because pop is the one category that moves the most. It is based on what's popular. So there's a little bit more leeway there. But anything you guys want to note about that group of artists?
I think most of them, you would hyphenate in the pop category of Bad Bunny as Latin pop, Doja Cat is R&B rap pop. She's got even more going on. Steve Lacy also R&B, Lizzo also R&B, Harry Styles a little bit more well, like 70s pop of like they all sort of like have very different and unique flavors. I think like none of those artists are doing things that like they've done before or that other people are doing. I think like they're really pushing boundaries and setting the course in that way for sure.
Where's the rock pop?
Yeah, I mean, on a few of the Harry songs, but not really. Yeah. And then
Maybe
I
more
think
on the group performances
yeah,
on like ABBA, Camila Cabello with Ed Sheeran, Coldplay, Post Malone and Doja Cat, Sam Smith and Kim Petras. So maybe a little nod to rock there.
No.
No.
yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I think even like how they term things like pop vocal album is kind of old school at this point. I don't think, yeah, like it means what it used to. So there's that as well.
That's interesting to think about.
You know,
Um,
rock category. Sorry.
Go for it.
Oh yeah, in that, you know, what's surprising to me, I think the Grammys has been around for what, like 50, 60 years, probably more. They have gotten the rock category epically wrong, like a lot of the times. I was doing a little research and I forgot Eric Clapton won over Nirvana's like Nevermind, the biggest record of the like the century. So it's like, you know, that is something they could definitely improve upon.
Well, I think that they made some changes last year, and they got rid of that. What do you call it? They had a sort of a stable of genre experts. There are about 300 to 400 genre experts spread across all the genres. They would go and sit in a conference room, and they would go through all this stuff and bounce the ideas around. And I was part of that one year in that rock and alternative genre category, and I was by far the youngest person in the room, and it was interesting to hear, you know, the takes and the arguments, and it's an all-day meeting because there's a lot of music to go through, but they did away with those people now, so that's not even a thing, so that's not a barrier. Hopefully that'll help.
And now it's really about what the artists and the labels are submitting to, correct?
Yeah, you submit. I think the way it goes is you submit. I'm thinking of the calendar, so I feel like you submit in July and August. You just fill out the online form and you send it in, and then there's a first round of voting, I believe, in October. That's for like all of the Recording Academy members who are able to vote. They get sent like a big pamphlet or whatever, or an online form, and they have until maybe the beginning of December to vote, and then things are figured out, and then the award show is February.
Yeah.
So they cut out that sort of like, like, all due respect to my friends at NPR, but like, the older guy at NPR is sitting there in the alternative music. He's gonna pass judgment. He's not listening to that stuff, so that whole process is gone now.
So just so you can't blame it all on the Academy, right? Like, artists are submitting for these certain categories. So if you're curious why someone's in a category, they had to submit their music for that. They had to not get nominated in that way to submit their music, go through the voting process to get the actual nominations.
I think you're allowed to submit up to 3 different genres, or three categories rather.
But so I think it's just a different way to look at that, right? If you know that it's not the Grammys deciding what category they in, then you start to go, well, what made Brandi Carlile decide that she wanted to go for rock, or what made,
Sure,
Machine Gun Kelly choose any one of his categories to go for, best rock album. So you have to kind of think about what the intention was of the artist when they were creating the music, when they were putting it out there, because it is open to interpretation.
And I think they have done some widening of the membership to get more younger Grammy voters as well. I think in the last 2 years they've had some backlash. So I've seen a few reports of that as well. So hopefully that'll be, help them also sort of evolve with music too.
Awesome. We're coming up on time. Again, we're Inside Music Curation. We take all sorts of tops around music curation. And since we're curating music for businesses, we think about genres a lot, and we think about, what music fits and what music, fits what purpose. So it's fun for us to take a look at something like the Grammys and how they approach genres. Any closing ideas from you guys, or things that you would hope to see in the future?
You know what? I would like to know what everyone's pick is for the Grammys. Like who is the one you're rooting for?
I'm rooting for Turnstile. They're nominated for a couple of categories. That'd be a huge score.
Yeah, I'd root for Zach Bryan. He has a nomination in the country category and has been a really slow burn over the last year. And I think many of his rabid fan base felt a Best New Artist nom should have been in there. And he even posted on social media. He's like, I don't care about this stuff, guys, but thank you. So I think that's just sort of textbook on sort of some of the attitude towards it. But yeah, I think some really, I think it's exciting to, obviously we've voiced some criticisms of, how the Grammys operates, but at the end of the day, the purpose is to celebrate music. And I think, we're definitely all about that. So very excited to see what happens, see how the performances are. I feel like, February, between Rihanna's Super Bowl performance and some Grammy performances, we're gonna get some good stuff in the next couple weeks.
Definitely. And I'm still I'm an indie rock kid, so I'm definitely, pushing for Wet Leg to get a few awards out of those nominations. It's always great to see a less represented genre come up to the big awards.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Juan, how about you?
I'm with Mike. Turnstile. I love hardcore, and hardcore has a wild lineage. Many years ago, this band Paramore won the Grammys, and in our community, that was a huge, it actually made the perception of the music that we were listening to, it widened the audience, right? So what I would love to see is if Turnstile wins and widens that audience, but if not, if it's Wet Leg or, well, not Brian. I don't want Bryan Adams to win. That's the only thing. Sorry, Brian. So sorry.
Well, yeah, everybody's got their own opinions. We're all rooting, or maybe not, but we've all got the folks that we're rooting for. It's fun to sit down and take a look at what's happening in the music industry at any given moment. And the Grammys is certainly a piece of that pie every year. So we'll see what happens at the awards this weekend, and what interesting tidbits get picked up on social media, and for the whole world to see, even the ones that aren't able to tune into the actual live event. So thank you guys so much, for breaking down a somewhat complicated topic. And again, if you're interested in genres, music industry, curating music for businesses, please subscribe here to Inside Music Curation, or check us out at feedmediagroup.com, where we have these conversations around the virtual water cooler every day. So thanks again, Mike, Juan, Claire, for contributing your expertise, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thanks.